ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the Experience Hockey Talk, serious hockey talk for serious hockey fans. I'm Michael Lindenbaum, and welcome to episode 3 for season 4 here. As, like per always, the third episode is what we consider the best episode. If you're a Capitals fan, which is where we're located in the area of, which is the DC metropolitan area, and that is the Washington Capitals preview. For those wondering, this entire episode will be all Washington Capitals. There won't be any other NHL stuff or NWHL stuff. Next week we will do the NWHL preview of all 5 teams in the National Women's Hockey League. Excited for that, especially for the announcement that we'll be putting out next Tuesday. Yes, we'll be doing a special start time next week, Tuesday, 8 p.m. We're not doing Wednesday night because of the obvious season opener for the Washington Capitals, and we want to watch the banner get raised. So, hopping right on into it for the Washington Capitals. Last season, they're 49, 26, and 7 with 105 points. First in the Metro, the Eastern Conference champions, and the Stanley Cup champions. Feels good to see that. Key additions for the Capitals was head coach Todd Reardon. Key departures were defenseman Jacob Jarabek for Jay Beagle, goaltender Philip Grubauer, and head coach Barry Trotz. Top questions facing the Capitals. Can they avoid the Stanley Cup hangover? For the first time ever, the Capitals will be going into a season after a very short offseason as the Stanley Cup champions. With the partying over and the focus now back on the ice, how the Capitals start this season could dictate how the season goes. Plus, being how essentially 99% of the team returned, the eagerness to repeat could help them not feel any hangover whatsoever going into the season. With maybe the exception of one player, but we'll talk about him later. And of course, obviously, ladies and gentlemen, if you have any questions, comments, or anything like that, go right into our Twitch feed, into our chat room, or on our Facebook Live chat as well. We will answer the questions. I have it right here to the side so I can see what anybody is asking or saying on the feed. So, going into the second question is who will step up in Jay Beagle's absence? With Beagle signing with Vancouver, the Caps lost their best faceoff guy and penalty killer. The Caps signed Nick Dowd as a free agent, so he'll get a shot at being the fourth line center. But then there are kids like Travis Boyd and Shane Gersich waiting in the wings. The only open spot at forward will be fun to see who gets it. And being how there's only 2 preseason games left before we start next season, which is next week, it'll be interesting to see how that filters out. But something tells me I'm going to see Nick Dowd in that fourth line center role to start the season, depending on how he does and how he fits in, and if he actually feels comfortable in the role that he's in. I could see that being a plus for him, and then it can be his spot. So it'll be interesting to see. Hi, Kaylee. So, yeah. Those were the top 2 questions that we asked on TXHThockey.com. And then now going into a more in-depth breakdown. It's 5 minutes into the show, and I'm probably going to be done in like 10 minutes. People better start putting questions and comments in the chat so I know, so we can extend this episode. Looking at the Capitals a little bit more in depth, we're going to start with the forwards. These are the lines that I believe that the Capitals should do. People will disagree with me, and that is perfectly fine. We all are entitled to our opinions, but let's keep it clean. So, starting off first line, I have Alex Ovechkin with Evgeny Kuznetsov and Tom Wilson. The duo of Alex Ovechkin with Nicholas Backstrom is very well known, but this past season, Ovechkin with Kuznetsov was just as dominant, and the grit and size of Tom Wilson with those two, make this line very lethal. One of the interesting things, I can't even read my own handwriting. One of the great things about this line when you look at them from a full-blown perspective is that Ovechkin plays like a power forward. Tom Wilson is a power forward, and then you have the playmaking skills of Evgeny Kuznetsov, and that makes them a very dangerous line because normally it's like you just have, when you have a top scoring line, you look at it like, hey, we have Ovechkin. He's a goal scorer. We have Kuznetsov. He's a great playmaker who can also score. Then we got Tom Wilson who brings in the pain, but with all the big hits and creating space and time for Kuznetsov and Ovechkin. But at the same time, you look at Ovechkin and you look at the hits that he throws out there as well. It's like you got two guys who can make a lot of room just for Evgeny Kuznetsov to make all those very great plays for the Caps. Also, last season, Wilson set career highs with 14 goals, 21 assists for 35 points, and in the playoffs registered 5 goals, 10 assists for 15 points. Wilson is improving greatly and could be a 20-goal, 50-point guy this season if he remains consistent, and he also remains consistently on the first line with Ovechkin and Kuznetsov. Last season, I said it 2 seasons ago in the playoffs, all Wilson needed was to start getting confidence in his shot. He got 3 goals in that series against Toronto. He started feeling confident in his game. It translated to him being able to have this opportunity to play on the first line of Alex Ovechkin and Evgeny Kuznetsov, and it paid off. He had 14 goals, 21 assists. He definitely improved for himself, and this season I can see even more great growth for him going into this season. Next up on the second line, I have Chandler Stevenson with Nicholas Backstrom and TXHT. Let's see if that helps with my CPU usage, which probably doesn't. Last season when Stevenson was put with Backstrom and Oshie, things just clicked for the three. You can tell that all three of their styles was meshed very well with each other. In his rookie campaign, Stevenson registered 6 goals, 12 assists for 18 points, and in the playoffs had 2 goals, 5 assists for 7 points. His speed with Oshie's grit and Backstrom's playmaking skill mesh well together and should stay together this upcoming season. Now, one of the other things is that a lot of people were talking about TXHT last season. They're saying, hey, he isn't playing as well as he should. But one thing that we all noticed with Oshie is that as the playoffs went on, he got better and better as the games went on. And it's kind of like that reverse thing where it's like as you play more games, the more beat up you get. For him, it was the more games he played, the more healthier he got. So it actually was a really cool thing to see with TXHT last season. And definitely came up big when he needed to be in the playoffs. And of course, Nicholas Backstrom, what can we say about Nicholas Backstrom? He's one of the most underrated centers in the NHL, one of the best two-way players in the NHL. And he's going to have another good season this year. On the third line, I have Andre Burakovsky with Lars Eller and Brett Connolly. During the playoffs, both Eller and Connolly were clutch players for the Caps. Burakovsky had yet another injury-plagued season marked with inconsistency, yet he meshed well with Eller and Connolly in the playoffs. I believe that having Burakovsky on the third line with Eller and Connolly would also be a positive for both him and the line, especially with his speed and his shot. Don't get me wrong, Burakovsky has great talent, but if I had the option, he probably would be the next guy who I would trade off of the team because of the fact that he's always injured, he isn't consistent, and I believe he's in the last year of it. I think he signed a 2-year deal before last season, so he's in the last year of his deal. So if he doesn't perform at the level he should and stays healthy, be able to play a full season, I'd be okay with moving Andre Burakovsky. But at the same time, he does mesh well with Eller and Connolly. And Connolly had a good regular season, but had an amazing playoffs. And Brett Connolly, to be serious with you guys, Brett Connolly is one of those guys who I said during last offseason is a guy who I would not have re-signed because in the playoffs, he wasn't trustworthy. Trotz couldn't play him in those playoffs against Toronto and then again against Pittsburgh. And whatever that did, whatever what was said to Connolly, he took it to heart and he became a playoff performer. And that is one of the biggest takeaways that I took from Brett Connolly last season in the playoffs, is that whatever was said to him during those playoffs that made him sit in the press box, it sunk in here, and he played with more of this. Not with the force, but with heart. But that was a key thing for Brett Connolly, and I definitely give Brett Connolly major props for that, because he turned around his game massively, and he was a very important player in the Stanley Cup playoffs, especially in the finals, scoring clutch goals. Speaking about clutch goals, you can't go wrong with Lars Eller either, scoring the game-winning goal to win the Caps the Cup, especially fresh off signing that 5-year contract with the Capitals. He found a home in Washington. He found a role in Washington, and he is excelling at that role. And let's just hope that he's able to continue that throughout the duration of that 5-year contract, which does kick in this season. And then lastly, for the forwards, we have Jacob Vrana with Nick Dowd and Devontae Smith-Pelly. Question mark? This is the line of question marks in my personal opinion. Last season, Smith-Pelly was spectacular in the playoffs for the Capitals, scoring multiple clutch goals. Dowd, entering his first season with the team, is looking to find a place and a role for himself, kind of like how a lot of other players have coming to the Capitals. Playing for both LA and Vancouver last season, he bounced around a lot. Getting a defined role will help him. Now for Vrana, and then we'll get to Smith-Pelly. For Vrana, he needs to build chemistry. Last season, when he had those opportunities on the first line with Ovechkin and Backstrom, and then Ovechkin and Kuznetsov, Vrana had virtually no chemistry with those guys. You could tell that the passes were just not connecting. When they threw passes to Vrana, it just wasn't feeding to his stick right. When he was trying to throw passes to them, it just wasn't working right. You can just tell that the chemistry was not there. And of course, I'm probably going to get so much hate in the Facebook chat for talking down about Jacob Vrana, but it's a fact. He needs to learn how to build chemistry with teammates. He is a talented player. I will not take that away from him. He's a talented player. He had 2 game-winning goals in the playoffs, and he contributed, which is a huge thing. But he needs to build chemistry. And I think the best way to learn how to build chemistry is by having to play on the 4th line, having to play with those reduced minutes. And who knows, that might be a benefit to Vrana. People always think, oh, you got to put him on the top line. You got to put him on the top line. Well, maybe putting him on the 4th line will be more beneficial for him now, leading up to later. Because keep in mind, in the next few years, especially with the cap, the salary cap, certain guys aren't going to be able to stay around. Certain guys are going to get moved. Vrana is building that chemistry. He's building up his game. He's getting confident, more and more confident. He's producing with the low minutes. Give him that opportunity to rise up the ranks. So, it could work in his favor. Now, for Dowd, like I said at the very beginning, he's probably going to be the odds-on to get the 4th line center role for now. And if he can, fit in and actually really, contribute at that 4th line center role, it's his for the keeping. Excuse me. But the big thing, let's see how much hate I got first. No hate. Wow. We'll take a look at Twitch. Oh, so all the comments are on Twitch, but they're not on Facebook. Okay, so looping back real quick. Actually, we'll loop back to those in a little bit. We're going to talk about Devontae Smith-Pelly. So Dixon, be chatty about Smith-Pelly. So Devontae Smith-Pelly, spectacular in the playoffs. He was definitely a clutch player in the playoffs, and he came into camp out of shape. He openly admitted that his conditioning could have been better. He has yet to play a game in the preseason. Reardon is not going to play him in a game until he feels that Smith Pelly is in the right condition to be on the ice in a game. Now, with 2 preseason games left, one has to wonder if Smith Pelly will get that chance because he is currently the only full-time Capital who has yet to play a preseason game. So you got some big questions there in regards to what's going to happen with Devontae Smith Pelly. Now, and I like Smith Pelly. I like him as a player. Coming into Washington last season, it was very unknown what type of role he would have had, especially the fact that the Capitals also brought in Alex Chiasson, who was also a very important player to the Capitals, and was also a player that the Capitals lost during the offseason. He got a PTO with the Edmonton Oilers. We're going to wait and see to see what happens with him, if the Oilers will sign him or not, or if another team will. But I thought Chiasson had a good regular season and a really good playoffs. But the fact that Smith Pelly showed up not in shape is a very scary thing, especially the fact that if you look at the Tampa Bay Lightning, they ended up terminating Jake Dotchin's contract like a week ago because he showed up to camp out of shape and not able to do any of the physical activities that they're required to do for their medicals. And I've seen some people say, well, if Smith Pelly came to camp in that shape, why don't they, terminate the contract? Well, it's not really that simple. You got to ask, was it a true breach of contract? That's the number one question. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with Smith Pelly. It's disappointing that of the 99% that came back, Smith Pelly is the one to not be in shape, but it'll be interesting to see what happens. All right, so back to some of the other forwards real quick. Dixon says, I can see Willie reach 50 points this season, and Burakovsky will be arbitration eligible as a restricted free agent this summer. So the key thing for him is that he's going to have to perform at that level to warrant, a good contract in arbitration if he goes into arbitration. I don't know why I put this over there because the defense is on here too. So, I'm going to drink something real fast. So, now looking at the defense for the Washington Capitals. Looking at the defense, the first pairing is obviously Michael Kempny and John Carlson. A great story for Kempny, once deemed expendable by Chicago to becoming a Stanley Cup champion with the Capitals. Kempny, who was obviously acquired at the trade deadline, quickly slotted himself alongside John Carlson, and the two became an amazing duo. Kempny and Carlson are going to look to continue to build on what they started near the end of last season and make the Capitals' defense one of the most dangerous ones. Obviously, one of the big things that did happen was the fact that both players got re-signed. Michael Kempny got signed to a 4-year deal, John Carlson to an 8-year deal. So we're definitely guaranteed to have both of them together, or at least on the same team together, for the next 4 years, which is great news for the Capitals because, like I said, once deemed expendable by Chicago, became Washington's diamond in the rough during the playoffs. He was a very highly valuable player. And I think also by putting him with John Carlson, it allowed John Carlson to be able to do a little bit more on the offensive side and on the defensive side because Kempny was able to move the puck up as a good offensive moving defenseman. And so it took some of that burden off of Carlson to always have to do it all the time. So I think that just that dynamic when you look at those two together really worked out very well. Now I can put the piece of paper over there. All right, next up you have Dmitry Orlov with Matt Niskanen. One of the most consistent pairs for the Caps, despite Niskanen missing time due to injury and some mistakes made that would have costed them games. Niskanen and Orlov still have a lot of growing together, and this season they will continue to guard the Cap zone together. Obviously, Niskanen and Orlov, I felt that this pairing was more prone to mistakes than some of the other pairings that the Capitals had throughout the season and in the playoffs. But one of the great things is that as they made mistakes, they utilized those mistakes to become better. And by taking those mistakes and improving upon those on the fly, so it's like they made that mistake in the first period, they did not make that mistake in the second and the third. Sometimes, obviously, you had games where it just wasn't their game. It happens. Everyone has those games where it's not their game. But definitely for these two, there's still growth for both of them. And Niskanen is actually with 2 years left in his contract. I don't know Orlov's term on the top of my head. But you're definitely going to at least get 2 years out of Orlov and Niskanen back together. Definitely a good pairing. Definitely a valuable pairing, especially when it came to the playoffs. And then next up, you got Christian Djoos with Brooks Orpik. Last season, both Madison Bowey and Christian Djoos spent time learning under Orpik, but it would be Djoos who would play 22 of the 24 playoff games that the Caps would play, while Bowey watched all 24 games from the press box. This season, it is expected to see Djoos back with Orpik, with Bowey being the team's seventh defenseman. Now, one of the things that I will stress about this is that just because Bowey is going to be the seventh defenseman doesn't mean he's going to be like a traditional seventh defenseman. I truly believe with how it is with Orpik, they got him back for one more year, got him at a steal, especially after Colorado bought out his contract. After trading with Colorado with Grubauer, kind of saw that happening. But they're going to learn under Orpik, just like they did last season. And I definitely believe that is going to continue this season. But one of the things I do see happening is I do see more games where Brooks Orpik is going to be in the press box a bit more to let Bowey and Djoos play together as a pair, and then have Orpik work with them at practice and work with them in the video room and help teach them and guide them. And then in games, have Bowey with Orpik, have Djoos with Orpik, so he can work with them in those games at the same time too, along with watching from the press box from the time to time that I believe Orpik will. So it's definitely a great dynamic for the Capitals on that third pair with Orpik, Djoos, and Bowey. So especially with the fact that the kids are going to have, their, mentor back for another season. So that's definitely a big plus for the Capitals right there. And then looking at the goaltenders, we're going to look at three of them. The top three on the depth chart per the Hockey News. First off is Braden Holtby. Last season he played 54 games with a 34-16-4 record. He faced 1,648 shots, and he gave up 153 goals for a 2.99 goals against average and a .907 save percentage. Then in the playoffs, he played 23 games, had a 16-7 record, 2 shutouts, 639 shots against, 50 goals against, a 2.16 goals against average, and a .922 save percentage. So let's be brutally honest here. Last season was not Holtby's best regular season, but come the postseason, he was back in form, greatly in due to the rest he was able to receive with Philip Grubauer playing more games for the Capitals. Holtby is without a doubt the number one man between the pipes, and looking to having a stronger regular season this year, as well as carrying it over into the postseason for him. Holtby is the man. and that's where it's going to stand. But the big question is that now that Philip Grubauer has been traded to Colorado, who now is going to be that person that is going to back up Braden Holtby? And we're going to start with the man that the brass has pretty much decided, and that's Phoenix Copley. Last season in the AHL, he played 41 games with a 15, 17, and 6 record. He had a 2.91 goals against average and a .896 save percentage. As I mentioned, the brass have decided that Copley will be the backup to Holtby this season after trading Philip Grubauer to Colorado. Having struggled in the AHL, one has to wonder if Copley can handle the pressure of being an NHL backup. Also, one has to wonder if he's going to be able to take some of that load, like the way Philip Grubauer did, off of Braden Holtby's shoulders. That's a big thing. Obviously, in the beginning of the preseason, Copley looked very shaky. Last night against St. Louis, he had the 42 save shutout victory, which was very good for him, and actually a very good confidence booster for him as well. But for Copley, the biggest question around him is that when needed, if they want to take, like 20, 30 something games off of Braden Holtby's shoulders, can Phoenix Copley shoulder that responsibility the way Philip Grubauer did? It's a hard question to ask of somebody to do. Can he do it? That's the key thing right there. And then speaking about key things, you got to ask about Ilya Samsonov, which last season in the KHL, he played 26 games for a 12-9-1 record with a 2.31 goals against average and a .926 save percentage. After spending the past 3 seasons with Manik Togarsk of the KHL, Samsonov is now making the jump to take on the North American game. As the top prospect the Caps have, there's a very good chance that Samsonov could get an opportunity to play in the NHL over Copley, depending on how fast he picks up the North American style of play. Because obviously, keep in mind, over in Russia and the KHL, bigger ice surface. Coming here to the NHL, North America, smaller ice surface. So he's got to have to adjust to playing that smaller ice surface. One can just say that he just spends the entire season in Hershey and only comes up if there's an injury, or they use Vitek Vanacek as the goalie for injuries to keep Samsonov playing. Instead, it really depends on what the situation looks like during the season. Also, one has to ask, if Samsonov is doing so good and Copley isn't doing so hot as the backup, do you make that switch? Even though it would be more beneficial for Samsonov to stay in the AHL and play games rather than sit on the bench and back up Braden Holtby in the NHL. So you got some interesting questions right there in that regards. Let's see if I got any hate comments. We got a like, but I don't have any hate comments. Nobody's hating on me about saying that Rhonda should be on the 4th line and all that other stuff. I'm either doing something right, or I'm doing something wrong. And Orlov actually has 5 years left on his contract. Orlov has 5 years left on the deal, so you're definitely going to have 2 years at least of those two together, Niskin and Orlov. So, yeah, people, ladies and gentlemen, if you're watching on Twitch, if you're watching on Facebook Live, comments, questions, we got a chat room for the Facebook Live. We got a chat room for the Twitch. I'm not sure if you can see it. Yeah, look. See that white thing right here? That's a chat for Facebook Live. We have no comments. Let me switch this over. See that right there? That's a chat box where my thumb is too. That's for Twitch. The only person commenting is Dixon. I want to hear from you, the people. So please, comments, questions, throw them in there. I'll answer them. I'm not afraid to talk to you, the people, while doing this show. And of course, the last thing we're going to review on the preview. We haven't even started the season. There's nothing to review. To preview is the new head coach of the Washington Capitals, Todd Reirden. Now, for Todd Reirden, this will be Reirden's first foray as an NHL head coach, but familiarity will be on his side as he takes over a team that he has been an assistant and associate coach these past 4 seasons. Reardon will have a daunting task as he takes over the defending Stanley Cup champions, as he'll look to be one of a few coaches to lead a team to a back-to-back cup after the first coach left the team. Now, obviously, Barry Trotz going to the New York Islanders to take over the mess that is now the Islanders. But Trotz having Reardon running the defense with Reardon was definitely top-notch, especially in the Stanley Cup playoffs. That defense, when they struggled, Reardon was able to right that ship and get them back to where they needed to be, to being that tough, stagnant defense that ended up winning the cup for the Capitals. Joining Reardon, actually, gotta find it real quick. I completely forgot to write this note down. Horrible me, but the great thing is I still got 30 minutes I need to kill on this show. Gotta be honest, eh? Let's see that way. There we go. Joining Todd Reardon as his coaches is Scott Arniel and Reed Cashman, of course, the returning Blaine Forsythe. I'm just going to throw this out there. You really only need one assistant coach. You can have the head coach run either offense or defense, and then the assistant coach running the other thing that the head coach doesn't run. We don't need 4 or 5 people on a bench. That's a little ridiculous. But yeah, Scott Arniel, former head coach of the St. Louis Blues, and I believe recently he was an assistant coach for Buffalo. If I remember right, he actually just finished a tenure as an assistant coach with the New York Rangers as well. And then Reed Cashman. Reed Cashman is one of the promotions up from Hershey. So Reardon, he now has his staff. The only carryover is obviously Blaine Forsythe and goaltending coach Scott Murray. Lane Lambert and Mitch Korn went to the Islanders with Barry Trotz. So it will be interesting to see how Reardon does. Luckily for him, familiarity with the team is going to help out a lot because the entire team knows him. He knows the team. The system really isn't going to change much. He may do tweaks here or there to change things up to improve a couple things. But overall, it would be good to see how Reardon does, especially with his coaching staff, and how they do this season. And we still have no comments or questions, except for Dixon. Damn, Dixon, why are you the only guy who likes to comment on this stuff? But yeah, so yeah, that is the Washington Capitals preview. It's 8:35. Do I end it early, or do I just talk? You know what? Let's talk about something. Courtesy of TXHT since we're done with Capitals and nobody wants to ask me questions or put in comments that I can feed off of, we're just going to do NHL news and notes for today. Because some big stuff did come out today. And of course, you can go to TXHThockey.com to read the latest article that came out from Dixon. By the way, good job, Dixon, with the dailies. We do appreciate the work that you're doing. In the NHL today, there's 2 big things that was announced. Number 1, Columbus Blue Jackets defenseman Seth Jones will miss 4 to 6 weeks with a second-degree MCL sprain, which he sustained in the preseason game against the Buffalo Sabres last night. And Bob Murray, general manager of the Anaheim Ducks, announced that Corey Perry had surgery today to repair meniscus and MCL injuries. His recovery timetable is set for 20 weeks or about 5 months. Now, for Columbus, That will be an obvious blow for them to start the season without their top defenseman in Seth Jones, but then also for the Anaheim Ducks, losing a guy who really needs to pick his game back up and become that goal scorer that he used to be. This is a massive blow for him. The fact that he's going to be out 5 months, and definitely not what he was looking to have for the start of this season. And then in other news and notes, the Vegas Golden Knights signed Shea Theodore to a 7-year contract with an AAV of $5.2 million. And then hockey in Seattle, maybe one step closer to reality as the Seattle Key Council approved lease agreements which will allow a demolition of Key Arena in downtown Seattle. This demolition will make way for a new facility that could host a future NHL expansion franchise. If there is to be a new NHL franchise, the earliest that could come is December at the NHL Board of Governors meeting. If Seattle is granted an expansion franchise, the earliest that team would begin play is the 2020-21 season or the 2021-2022 campaign with an expansion fee of $650 million. The Vegas Golden Knights expansion fee was set at $500 million. Obviously, with the success of the Golden Knights, the next expansion team that's going to come in the league, price is going to go up. And then, of course, with the tweet that Dixon provided in the Daily in yesterday's news and notes, Seattle Times Sports, a decade-long saga is nearing its end. Key Arena will undergo a $700 million renovation financed by OVG. When it's over, will an NHL team be playing there? And, of course, yesterday, Elliot Friedman of Hockey Night in Canada released his 31 Thoughts article, talked about team owners being involved in the Erik Karlsson trade, talked about NHL teams recruiting through the college ranks, and some other pretty good articles that were in there yesterday. Definitely a great article by Elliot Friedman of Hockey Night in Canada. So definitely a good one there. And yes, we have the greatest one, and we're gonna save that for last, and we can laugh hysterically. Obviously, the other day, the Washington Capitals reintroduced their classic red jerseys to be their third jerseys, which they'll wear on 12 games. Good decision by the Washington Capitals to bring back the retro reds. I know a lot of people wanted the Blue Eagle jerseys to come back. I am right there with you, but let's be brutally honest. The Capitals should be wearing full-time the retro red and the retro white Capitals uniforms as their full-time jerseys, and then actually utilize the Blue Eagle jersey as their third to those uniforms. That would be a lot better in my personal opinion, but I'm actually happy that they're going with what they're going with right now. Guidebug. And you can't go wrong with the retro stuff. I mean, Calgary's going with retro. Edmonton's going back to the navy. Thank God, because those orange jerseys are ugly, and I hope they replace the orange jerseys after the season. St. Louis has a very beautiful heritage jersey. I love theirs. So definitely some teams have some good ones. In NWHL news, Connecticut Whale's Sam Faber announced her retirement. And then, of course, yeah, we'll skip that one for a moment. And then, of course, Brian Giunta announced his retirement. He will be taking on a position with the Buffalo Sabres in the organization. And then, let's have some laughs. The other day, the Flyers did something hilarious. Brought great joy to my day on a stressful Monday. And they unveiled whatever the hell that thing is. Not the best way to shoot it on here. I probably should have loaded it into the program, but the hell with it. Ladies and gentlemen, meet Gritty. And it is horrifying. Hair tacky. Props to James Myrtle of TSN. What are you? I agree. Pete Blackburn laughed my ass off. No, what is this? What have you done? CM Punk getting into it. Can't go wrong with that. Glad to see LD and Jelly love for the Flyers manifest into an orange thing. Congrats, Lou. Good job, CM Punk. And of course, our good friend Ted Starkey. Gritty looks like Yuppie after a bender in the parking lot. And then he also did a before and after photo of Yuppie and then of Gritty. And then Jordan Hall of NBC Sports Philly. Jacob Voracek said, I was looking in the mirror. And then, of course, a fan put out saying if he should lift the cup first, the Flyers win it. And, of course, the Pittsburgh Penguins got in on it going with LOL. Okay. And then some fans got into it. Hiya, Georgie. What a nice vote. Do you want it back? And then, of course, imitating It, the movie It with the clown in the sewer. And honestly, our own tweet, I can't stop laughing because I couldn't. And lastly, in a conversation with my father, who is a Philadelphia Flyers fan, I can confirm the official comments of my father about Gritty, and that is, I hope he dies. So, not going so well for Gritty. People want him to die. What's that, Dixon? After the All-Star break for Perry, big blow for Anaheim. Sadly, Edmonton will only wear the blue for 4 games this season, I believe. That's a bummer, too. And about Gritty, oh, that nightmare fuel needs to be destroyed with fire. God, I love talking about Gritty. So, alright. I'm being attacked by something. It's annoying me, so give me a second. I think I feel better now. I don't think I felt like I had a hair just attacking me as I was trying to read this stuff. But that was the yeah, so that was some of the noteworthy stuff for the last couple of days. Dixon, you've just been doing your regular chime-ins. Do you have anything for me, bud? 6 hours later, he responds. Let's see here. So, I don't see comments from people. Nope, nothing for you. Alright, well, with that, ladies and gentlemen, then, nothing from Dixon, no comments from the other Peanut Gallery. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for watching TXHT. We will be doing a pushed up episode, or special time episode, special date and time, next Tuesday, 8 p.m. instead of Wednesday at 8 p.m. because of the fact of the Capitals home opener with the banner raising. Obviously, if we're going to do an episode during that, nothing's going to happen for us, so it's just going to be us talking and then just us posting it later for everyone else to watch later. But what we're going to talk about next Tuesday is we are going to preview the Washington Capitals game against the Boston Bruins and also preview the game the very next night against the Pittsburgh Penguins. We're going to talk about what it's going to be like having the Stanley Cup banner be raised at Capital One Arena. which will be awesome to see. We're hoping to see it live. It is 2 days after my birthday. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge, say no more. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, you can follow the Experience Hockey Talk on Twitter at TXHT_hockey, Facebook at facebook.com/TXHThockey. Join our Patreon community. We will be working on getting stuff up there for all of you. Eventually, we're still trying to work out everything with the website, and once we get that worked out, then we're going to go back to doing the Patreon stuff again. So be patient, but join the Patreon community at patreon.com/TXHT_hockey. And of course, the big one now, go to our website every day, TXHThockey.com. We have the daily article that Dixon puts out. We got the daily article that Dixon puts out. We're going to have game preview and game post-game stuff. We're going to do live game coverage where during the actual game we're going to do coverage of the game. We actually did a demo run last week on Saturday for the Capitals Hurricanes game, which went over well with how we wanted to do it. For the most part, there were a few minor things that kind of annoyed me, but that's just how WordPress is set up. Whatever. But yeah, TXHThockey.com. Go there for all your Capitals coverage. We will mostly be doing Caps game coverage. If anything major happens, then we will cover that as well. Also, we got Arian who's covering the St. Louis Blues, so keep an eye out for that if you're a Blues fan. If you want to see what the dumpster fire of the Montreal Canadiens could be like this year, follow Armand and pay attention to his articles on the Canadiens this season. Our good friend Russell Hartman from Forever Blue Shirts, who will be contributing from time to time about the New York Rangers. And of course, today we just brought on Steve Gardiner. He will be covering the Toronto Maple Leafs for us. And even though we've already put out our Toronto Maple Leafs preview, we will be having him put out his own Toronto Maple Leafs 2018-19 preview article for all of you to read, and as a way for you all to be introduced to Steven. So, with that, ladies and gentlemen, this has been the Experience Hockey Talk, serious hockey talk for serious hockey fans. Until next Tuesday at 8 p.m. for our special episode, the special start time episode, special days, the special episode. Yay! This is the day before the home opener. We will see you on the ice. It's the same. Let me do what I need to do.